Alright guys, this is one of the longest videos I've done. It was like 60 individual videos I had to edit and compile together. It took me a long time, about 2 days, and I'm doing it for two reasons. One, because it's a very detailed video of how you do a valve adjustment and disassemble and reassemble the throttle linkage. But also, this is the 1985 300 CD, which only has 56,000 miles. So this is a very rare, very low mileage car. So I'm trying to cover every little detail about what was done on the vehicle. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Shoot me an email, call me, post in the comments section. I'm getting back to everyone, and I really enjoy answering all the questions and reading all the comments. So thanks a lot, and enjoy the video, you guys. See ya. So what I'm going to work on now is doing a cleaning all the throttle linkage and the valve adjustment. I don't know when the last time the valve adjustment was done on this car, but I figured I could record that. That's a pretty simple process on these cars. And let me set this down while I raise the hood. Yeah, it's a pretty simple process on these cars. And I haven't cleaned or done anything to this engine at all. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop off all the throttle linkage, pop off the valve cover, clean off the, I forget what you call that stuff, that waxy stuff they sprayed on from the factory. I don't think they sprayed it on here. That might be just dirt and oil and dust. See, it scrapes off. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up, pop all these linkages off, do a valve adjustment, and probably replace the bushings under here. Actually, somebody already did that, so those bushings appear to be good. I'll check them out, and that's what I'm going to get working on now. Alright, that's about the best angle I can get there. So first I'm going to start with all the C-clips up here, and if you guys see me drop one, don't laugh. Just got to pry these little guys off of here. There we go. There's one. See the potential for that to go flying across the room? And here's another one over here. Ah, good. Got that one off of there. Let's see. That should be able to pop that off. And then I need a bigger screwdriver, but I gotta pop all these connections off here, all these linkages. And there's like a sticky substance on here. I guess someone tried to lubricate that at some point. So that's for the cruise control. So there we go. I'll pop this one off. I'm just going to set that aside over here. Let's get, that screwdriver might be big enough. I don't think so though. Yeah, I'm going to get a bigger screwdriver for this. Just start popping off all these linkages. Yeah, I'm going to clean these up in the parts washer. It's got this greasy, it's like a sticky. You can see it come off on my fingers like a little spider web. I'm going to get all that junk off of there. But these are in beautiful shape. Look, it still has the cadmium plating on it. So these are going to clean up super nice. This one off here. This is the connected to your stop switch. And you want to be delicate when you do this. If you just get it in the right place, they pop off easy and you don't break anything. Yeah, somebody put some grease down here. Alright, let's see, we got that one off. And we're going to pop this one off here. There we go. We'll put those out of the way there. And let's see. We're going to pop this guy off of here. There we go. Get this zip tie off of here. This zip tie off of here. There we go. just move that out of the way there. Yeah, I want to disassemble all this because it's kind of crusty looking. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off the Bowden or Bowden cable, however you say that. This one's a little more difficult to get off. Yeah, it looks like someone literally put grease under here instead of transmission fluid. Works much better because the grease gets all sticky like I'm seeing now. Come on. There we go. And then, now there's a spring under here. This is spring loaded. So, let me take this off one piece at a time here. And there's another C-clip underneath this piece. And we're 2 for 2 C-clips now. Let's see if we can get this other one out. There we go. 3 for 3. Winning. Now this piece, this is spring loaded, so it should kick back around here. Let me get that out of the way. Okay, now I'm going to just grab that little spring right there and disconnect it. There we go. Okay, cool. So see how that assembly comes off of there? And you see there's a little spring hook right there. And that spring is right here. The other side hooks right in this area. So when you put it back on, you spin around and that keeps tension on everything. But yeah, that's gummy and nasty. So this is going to move much smoother once I clean all this up. Now I want to take these 10mm bolts off here and just kind of set this assembly over there. Actually, do I want to take that is that a C-clip right there? Yes, I want to take this linkage off right here. I want to just double check, make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm going to take this one off right here, and there's a C-clip right there because I want to clean that too. And guys, this is, I mean, I'm not tooting my own horn, but you see those cars go for crazy money on Bring a Trailer. And I guarantee you, stuff like this has not been done on those vehicles. Those vehicles are they're not restored. The throttle linkage hasn't all been taken apart and cleaned and lubricated. Those are just, so if you get one of those vehicles, you're going to have to spend thousands of dollars. New shocks, new suspension bushings, valve adjustment. Now, yeah, some guys I'm sure have had valve adjustments done, but removing all the throttle linkage and cleaning it, and just kind of makes me sick to see those cars go for crazy money when I know the owners are going to get, there we go, got it off. 4 for 4 C-clips. And those guys buy those cars, you know, super low mileage, nice cars with no restoration work done on them. And every one of these cars needs restoration work. I don't care how nice it is. A 40-year-old, a 35-year-old vehicle, you have to do work on it. And it's not because they're broken down or stuff is broken. It's just maintenance. And what I'm doing here, this is maintenance. None of this stuff is broken. But to get it to operate like it did from the factory, you have to take it apart and clean it and put it back together. There we go. And it's just a pet peeve of mine. So this is, let's see, this is a plug. So this switch, I think this switch, when you're full throttle, this switch kicks in and it shuts off your AC. So you get every last ounce of that 120 horsepower. But I want to pop this switch off of here. There we go. All right, now this is one of those weird Mercedes clips that I think is reusable. And I think you can get it out of here if you pinch it the right way. Boom. There we go. All right. Let's put that over here. And I want that Bowden cable out of there too. And you can just push these two tabs in. That's the only thing I've seen on these cars that is the same as American muscle cars, the way these cables, that's the same way they connect their speedometer cables, is how this Bowden cable is connected, and that'll just pull right through there. There we go. Set that over there. All right, we got our, I said 10 millimeter before, it's actually 13 millimeter. And we're just going to take off all the nuts for the valve cover. There should be, I think there's 4 of them, 2 on each side. There. This is another spot where it's kind of easy to drop a bolt or drop a nut. Yeah, I said that. And there she went, down there into the ground. Okay, I recovered said nut from under the car. See if I can get these two off without dropping them. This Milwaukee, by the way, is the most badass. It's the Milwaukee Fuel. I don't know, this is supposed to have the most torque of any of them. And this thing is freaking awesome. Ever since I got it, as it doesn't get the last one, ever since I got it, I've almost completely stopped using a hand ratchet because it's just so much more efficient. All right, come on. Just don't want to drop it. Here we go. All right. We're 3 for 4 nuts, but 4 for 4 C-clips. A little tougher to get off. Come on. There we go. 5 for 5. There we go. A cotter pin. And we should be able to get this stuff out of here now. There we go. So we'll pull that throttle linkage out of there. Now we'll pop off the injection pump linkage right here, the little ball and socket. I just pulled this guy off. God, I can't wait to clean that. Look how the cadmium plating is still on there. It's going to clean up really nice. We're going to pop off the injection pump linkage right here. Get out of here. Man, these have, somebody put, looks like axle grease on here to lubricate them. I don't like that at all. Come on. This one's being a little bit of a bitch. There we go. All right. Fine. You win. There we go. 1 for 2. That one just fell down there. Come on out of there. And they've come in handy. Alright, take that assembly off of there, put my screws back there, boom. There we go, got it. Alright, let's get that guy out of here. That's going to look nice when that's cleaned up. That's obviously never been cleaned. Let's take a look underneath it. Oh, it's clean under there. So let's set this down. That's going in the parts washer. There we go. Throw this guy away. Look at that. Look how clean those are. There's not even a scratch on them. Super clean cam lobes. Means they change their oil regularly. Oh yeah, those look great. Those look fantastic. Still got the factory paint on the valve springs. Let's check the chain stretch. Oh man, there is none. Look how tight that timing chain is. Yeah, that's how you want it to be right there. Chain guides, good condition. You can see the tensioner right there pressing into the guide rail. That's the tensioner, which comes into the side of the engine down here. I can't really get underneath all that stuff. But yeah, that tensioner. There you go, you can hear it. See it moving right there? It's filled with oil. And pressurized oil from the system keeps that chain tensioner taut. But yeah, chain's in immaculate condition. That is a beautiful looking top end right there. So let's get this valve adjustment done. First, I want to clean the valve cover. And here's all the linkage. There's my 4x4 cotter pins or C-clips. I want to get all this cleaned up really nice. And then we'll do a valve adjustment and put the engine back together. Alright guys, I just wanted to show a before and after. Here we are at the famous Clean-O-Matic, Gray Mills Clean-O-Matic parts washer. This thing's a beast. But here we are. This is before cleaning. Alright, we're making some good progress with a brass brush and the parts washer. Just getting off. It looks like it's just a combination of oil and dust that has like dried over the years. It comes right off once you hit it with the parts washer, and then rub it with a brass brush or some Scotch-Brite, and it goes right back to the nice shiny aluminum. Alright folks, look at that. About 40 minutes in the parts washer, scrubbing and cleaning. And that is back to how it looked from the factory. These things really clean up nice. Guys, this part's a little tricky because all of the throttle linkage still has the original cadmium plating, so I can't really scrub it with Scotch-Brite or any brass brushes. Let's see. I'm just seeing if this brass brush will remove the cadmium plating, because it's very easy to remove, and I definitely don't want to do that. So I'd rather leave a little bit of dirt, on these than risk removing that nice gold plating that's still original from the factory. So I got to just tread lightly on this stuff, and I'm just selectively leaving just a little dirt just so I don't rub it off. But they actually are cleaning up really nice. Wow, these pieces are beautiful. I don't know, call me crazy, but I think that's a beautiful part. How it's still all gold like that. I love that. Here's some suspension parts I cleaned up from another car. I just love that like rainbow gold, blue, green coating. And anyway, so I'm just finishing up this throttle linkage. Alright guys, that's about as good as it gets. This is all the linkage cleaned up as best I could without removing any of the cadmium plating. Like you can see, there's still some dirty spots on here, but man, if I started scrubbing that, to get it off you have to use Scotch-Brite or a brass brush, and you can see where I tested it in one little area right there and the cadmium plating started to come off. So I'm just leaving that because it's worth keeping it the correct color. So that's all cleaned up and ready to go back on the car, and it came out super nice. Alright, today guys I'm going to do a valve adjustment on the 85-300 CD. Now I've driven this car probably 10 miles, 15 miles, and it's actually the quickest 617 engine I've ever driven. Super peppy, quick off the line, very responsive. I mean, it only has 56,000 miles on it. So it's going to be interesting to see, knowing that it's one of the quickest 617s, probably the quickest I've ever driven. It's going to be interesting to see if the valves are in spec or if they're out of spec. So we're going to find that out today. This car still has the sticker on it, and valve adjustments are different based on the measurements are different based on the temperature of the engine. And you can see right here, valve lash when the water temp is below 30 degrees Celsius, the intake is 0.10 millimeters and the exhaust is 0.35 millimeters. But if your engine is hot above 45 degrees Celsius, the intake is 0.15 and the exhaust is 0.40. So they increase both of them by, looks like 0.5 millimeter. So we're going to do the cold lash adjustment. We're going to make sure all the intakes are 0.10 millimeters and all the exhausts are 0.35 millimeters. So this is going to, you got to rotate the crank as you go through them. So I have to stop and start the video a lot because I'll raise the car up on the lift, and I'm going to have a socket on the crank bolt. So I'll rotate it clockwise. So I have to do a lot of starting and stopping because I'll go under, rotate it, come back up, do the adjustment, go under, rotate it, come back up, do the adjustment. Anyway, but I'll show you guys how it's done. Okay, so in order to start the valve lash adjustment procedure, you want to rotate the engine over. We're going to start on the first cam lobe, and you want the cam lobe pointing up and maybe even a little to the right, past up, because the measurement you want to take is between the rocker arm and the base of the cam lobe. See, for example, this cam lobe is pointing that way. Here's the base. This whole area, the base kind of starts right in here and goes all the way around the bottom. So as long as you have this pointing up, you're on the area that's the base. And you can go a little bit further if you wanted to get more technical and get dead center on the base, but it doesn't matter. As long as you have these pointed up, you're in the right vicinity. And I know this first valve is an exhaust, and the exhaust calls for, I don't know if y'all can see the measurement on here, probably not. This is 0.35 millimeters. So I'm going to stick that. Okay, see how it took just a little bit of force and there's a little bit of drag? That's perfect. That's in perfect adjustment at 0.35. So I actually don't need to make a change to the first one. So my guess is that this, like I said, this car was running so well. My guess is that the valves are going to be perfectly adjusted. The original owner must have had this done recently. So let's look for another lobe that is close to being on the base. Okay, there we go. This back one right here. You can see it's pointed a little to the right, but the rocker is still on the base. Now, the very back cam lobe, that's the intake. It actually goes, let's see, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake. That's the order. And we know the first one is the exhaust because there's the exhaust manifold right there. So there's the exhaust valve, so it'll shoot it right out the side into the exhaust manifold. So that's an easy way to tell what the first one is. So let's measure the back one. The back one is an intake, okay? So for that we're going to need our 0.10 millimeter feeler gauge. Okay, I've got my 0.10 millimeter feeler gauge. I know you can't really see that. We're going to go back here and check this. Okay, that one's loose. You see, I can just move that around under there. So I want to see exactly what it is. So I'm going to go up a couple of different sizes and see how far I am off. I just spent about 5 minutes trying to find the right feeler gauge to get the measurement of that rear intake because I know it's supposed to be 0.10, and actually I'm in the US, so I'm used to doing it in thousandths, so that would be 4 thousandths. And the correct one to show how much it's out is 0.23, and you can see 0.23 millimeters slides in there perfect. So 0.23 millimeters, that's actually the same, you guys can't see that, as 9 thousandths. Okay, so that means that is out 5 thousandths of an inch. So I need to get that back in to spec, which is 0.10 millimeters or 4 thousandths of an inch. The feeler gauges actually say 0.10 millimeters and then under that 4 thousandths. They have the equivalent metric and SAE measurement. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that rear valve and we'll get that back into spec, and I'll show you guys how that's done. Okay guys, it's pretty tough to show the back one that I'm adjusting, but you can see, I'll just go to this one right here. There is a nut on the bottom there, which is black, and that's that's like a adjustment nut or a lock nut. You can look at this, you know, one way or the other. One is the locking nut, one's the adjustment nut. So you can put a wrench on the bottom one and a wrench on the top one, and you can loosen it or break the lock nuts connection and then adjust to get within spec. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the back one here. Now I'm probably going to get in the shot, so let me go ahead. Alright, so I've got it loose. Feeler gauge. Alright. So I'm just going to leave my feeler gauge laying right there, and then I'm going to loosen until it actually presses into the feeler gauge. Now I know I'm getting close. I need to back it off a little bit. Okay, see that? The feeler gauge is now stuck in there. I backed off the adjustment to close the gap. So now I'm going to tighten it a little bit. Still stuck in there. Tighten a little bit more. Still stuck in there. In a minute it's going to loosen up, and then I'll do my final adjustment. Okay, there we go. It just, that feeler gauge, let me back it off just a little bit. Oh, that's good. We got just a little drag now. Let me back it off. That's exactly where we want it. Now here's the tricky part. You have to tighten the lock nut and keep the top one still, because you don't want your adjustment to change. Ooh, there we go. That's perfect. See that feeler gauge? There's just a little resistance, and it goes through there perfectly. So that one is now back in spec. So I'm just going to snug it up a little bit. You don't want to go crazy tight. That's good. You don't need to put 50 pounds of torque on that. All right, that's how you... So basically I've checked the first exhaust valve here, and I've adjusted the very last intake one right back there. My camera doesn't like to focus when I zoom in. So I'm going to go through and do a couple of, just go down the row. I got to rotate the engine. Alright, the next one that was convenient to adjust after rotating the engine was the exhaust on cylinder number 3. And you can see the lobe right here. You can barely see it behind the camshaft tower. So I know that's an exhaust because it goes exhaust intake, intake exhaust, exhaust intake. So that's exhaust intake, intake exhaust, exhaust intake. This is the exhaust. So I know this is supposed to be 0.35 millimeters, or SAE is 14 thousandths. Oh yeah. We have just a slight amount of drag with the 0.35 millimeter. So that's another exhaust that is in spec. So off camera over here I have a sheet of paper and I just put a mark next to the one that I check. Alright, so it looks like the next convenient one to check, we're probably going to do the one next to it, which would be an intake. So I have to rotate the engine a little bit to get that cam lobe up. Okay, you can see the next one is I'm on cylinder 3 on the intake. So I'm going to get my 10 millimeter, 0.10 millimeter, or 4 thousandths, and I'm going to see how that fits down in there. Okay, it seems a little tight, but I can actually, yeah, it's on the tight side, but I can get the feeler gauge through there. I had to put a little bit of force, but that's actually fine. It's actually good. It's fine if it's a little tight or a little loose. You just want it in that general area. You don't have to get this exactly dead on, like the perfect smoothness of how the feeler gauge goes in there. If the feeler gauge goes in there, it's the size of the feeler gauge. And you can see I'm pushing it in there. It's got a little more drag than I like, but that's fine. The fact that the gauge goes in there means that it is 0.10 millimeters. So that one's within spec. So far the only one that we saw out of spec is the very last, and I think I said it was 5 thousandths of an inch out of spec. So my guess is the rest of these are gonna look pretty damn good, because that's the only one I've had to adjust. So the previous owner must have already taken care of this at some point in the near past. So let me go ahead and rotate the engine to the next lobe and check that. All right, this one's actually in a really good place. You guys can see it well. Hopefully it's not going to go out of focus once I stick my hand in here. The next convenient cam lobe to rotate was the intake. Remember, because it goes exhaust intake, intake exhaust, exhaust intake, intake exhaust, exhaust intake. That's the order. So on the first one we have exhaust and intake. So I'm going to measure this one, and that's 0.10 or 4 thousandths. Oh, that's really loose. All right, let me see if I can find the net. Here, let me do it with the other hand so you guys can see. See how loose that is? That's too loose. So let me go to a 0.13. Okay, I can push a 0.13 in there, so I think that's a 0.13. So that's basically 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch out of spec. So I'm going to put that one back into spec. I'm guessing it's 15 10 thousandths of an inch out of spec, or 0.0015. So really, that's not bad. You could drive the car fine, and it really wouldn't hurt anything. But I'm going to put this, since I have everything apart, I'm going to make it perfect the way it says. So we're just going to loosen. There we go. I just broke them loose. Now we're going to get our, this is just the way I do it. I put the feeler gauge in there. Oh, actually, by breaking it loose, it closed the gap. So I know you guys probably can't see. Let me move the camera over here. You can see the wrenches I have on there, and my arm is probably in the way now. So 10 thousandths will no longer go in there. So I'm just going to hold the bottom still and tighten the top wrench just a little bit of a turn. That'll open the gap up because it's tightening the screw or the adjustment nut. Tighten it a little bit more. There you go. See, I have to barely force it to go in there. It's good and snug. That's where we want it. So that's now back into spec, and what we want to do is loosen the bottom nut so it presses up against the top nut and holds it in place. It's a lock nut. There we go. We're going to snug it. Should be there. There we go. That's how I like it. See, I gotta kind of force it in, but not too much. It's nice and firm at 0.10 millimeter or 4,000. That's correctly adjusted. Bam. That is perfect. So we're going to mark that off. That is cylinder 1. Intake has been adjusted. So it just so happens the next convenient one to adjust was the intake on cylinder number 2. Here's cylinder number 1, exhaust intake. Cylinder number 2 is intake exhaust. And by the way, guys, I have the intake exhaust pattern written down over here. That way I don't make a mistake. It's just off camera, you can't see it. So we got exhaust intake, and then it starts at an intake. So I'm on cylinder number 2, intake. That's 0.10 millimeter or 4 thousandths of an inch. Let's go ahead and see what that is. Okay, again, it's a little loose. So what I'm finding is the intakes are a little loose. Here's a 0.13 or a 1,000th of an inch looser, right? So a 0.10 millimeter is 4 thousandths of an inch. A 0.13 millimeter is 5 thousandths of an inch. So we're going to check 1,000th of an inch. So actually, guys, this is not even. Okay, I can't get a feeler gauge in there that is 5 thousandths. So that intake is within 1,000th spec. There's no reason to adjust that intake. Alright guys, you guys can probably see this one pretty good. Yeah, you can see cylinder 4 is pointing straight up here, and I know my hands are going to be in the shot, but I got to reach over to. Oh yeah, that one feels good. That's the intake point. That's going in there at 0.10. That intake is good. So I'm going to mark that off on my sheet. Cylinder 4 intake is good. So guys, what y'all are seeing in this adjustment is what it looks like to adjust a healthy engine that was probably adjusted 10,000 miles ago. I'm barely seeing any adjustments that are needed. Alright, this one I don't think you guys can see back behind the cam tower, but I'm doing the exhaust on cylinder 5. And again, the exhaust, let me look at my feeler gauge, make sure I have the right one. Yep, 0.35 millimeters or 14 thousandths. And that is the last measurement, and that could not be more perfect. That's the perfect amount of valve lash. So we only adjusted 2, guys. That wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be, but basically what that tells us is that this engine had been maintained, and the previous owner had been doing valve adjustments. Granted, it has 56,000 miles on it. I bet you there was one valve adjustment or two valve adjustments in there, because we only found a couple of intakes that were off. Anyway, so I don't know if that was useful, guys. I'll try to edit it and make it more useful. So I'm gonna go ahead and put together the top end of the engine. I cleaned up all the throttle linkages, so we're gonna put that back together and start the video again. So now that we have the valves adjusted and everything's back in spec and the valve cover's cleaned, I've got a fresh gasket on here, and we are going to button up the engine. They always fight you going back on. Well, guys, I was going to show that, and I fixed the gasket, and then I just I set it on there. I must have just gotten it just right, because it just fell straight down in place. Okay, guys, I looked up the torque spec, and it's 15 Newton meters, which is about 11 foot-pounds. So I've got my inch-pounds torque wrench. That's around 125 inch-pounds or so, because a foot-pounds torque wrench that's too small of a measurement. So I like to tighten them. You tighten them in a alternating pattern so it goes down evenly. All right, see, that's not much. 15 Newton meters. Not much. You don't want to crank this down on there. There's no reason to. There we go. So now I'm going to start reassembling the throttle linkage. And keep in mind, you are screwing into aluminum. So aluminum strips very easily. So you don't go cranking these bolts down. I don't know, I'll probably put 10 or 15 foot-pounds on them, and that's it. Because there's no worse feeling than when you're screwing a bolt into aluminum and then all of a sudden you feel it let go, and then you know you're just fucked. You got to do a thread insert or whatever you call those things, and so be careful when you're putting stuff back together on aluminum. You don't want to mess it up. And let's put this one here. And give me a sec, let me get my torque wrench. And we're going to just hand tighten them a little bit. There we go. We're only going to like 12 foot-pounds or so. And because you don't want to crank those things down. There's no reason. There's no crazy amount of force on these bolts, and that's going into an aluminum valve cover. Okay, so I'm going to start putting things back together. The way I like to lubricate it is with transmission fluid, because it doesn't attract a lot of dirt. When you put grease on all this stuff, it just gets clogged up with dirt. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some drops on here. And I just do it with a little syringe that I keep in the shop. Let's squirt some down this other side here. Then let's push this guy through here. There we go. Nice and smooth. All right, let's get this guy back through here. There we go. Then it's going to slide through the little grommet here. Come on. There we go. Now I'm going to lubricate that a little bit. Squirt some on the back here. There we go. Push that through. And then this one, I'm going to lubricate it in the back. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is going into the firewall. It's the linkage. There we go. Linkage for the accelerator pedal. And that's going to go back. There we go. Perfect. Now that needs to go in that little notch there. Perfect. Next we're going to start putting on the clips. So this clip, here's the main throttle linkage that comes from the accelerator pedal. And this one slides over the end. Here in the rear on the firewall. I think you guys can see that. Yeah, it goes right back there. It's just a little cotter pin. There we go. There's a cotter pin that holds that little tab in the rubber piece. And it goes right there. There we go. That is back in place. Your stop sticker on it holds it into this plastic bushing. You got to get that C-clip right around there. All right, there we go. I'm 2 for 2 on the clips. Actually 3 for 3 on the clips. Okay, next I'm going to start on the cruise control linkage. And first I just want to put a little squirt of transmission juice down in there. And we want to put this back up over there. That's lubricated good. And then we're going to put a little transmission juice on here. It's okay if it spills, guys. It's not going to hurt anything. It's more important that the car is serviced correctly, not how pretty the engine compartment looks. I'm going to put some more in there. There we go. Let's put that down in there now. Oh, very nice. That's how that's supposed to be. Ah, got it. Beautiful. Look how easy that moves now. Very nice. Here's the part that has, I showed you guys, it has the spring underneath it. So let me hit this with some carb cleaner and see if I can gently rub off some of that without disturbing the cadmium. You know, before I do that, I want to clean a little of this with some carb cleaner and a nylon brush too. Oh yeah, carb cleaner is taking some of that dirt off that the parts washers don't dissolve dirt, they dissolve grease. They loosen up dirt, but they don't get rid of dirt. Yeah, that looks a little better. See if we can do some of that over here. All right, that's about as aggressive as I'm going to get. Alright, so where we're at now, we have the throttle return spring attached. You can see here, and the throttle linkage and bushing over here, and they've both been lubricated. And the factory service manual actually says do not lubricate this little wheel that spins right here. I don't know why it says that, but it says don't lubricate that. Anyway, I'm going to get the C-clips back onto here. I'm like 3 for 3 or 4 for 4. We're going to see if we can get this one on without dropping it. Ah, got it. Alright, now there's an actual C-clip that goes here on top of the return spring and the air conditioner switch cut off. I guess that's a cam right there. I'm going to just push it in with the tip of the pliers. Okay, good. And then we have this little guy that mounts on the top. Now there's a little cutout. Let's see if it's gotten blurry on you guys. No, so on this piece you see how that bushing sticks out on the top, but on the bottom there's actually a little, it's a wider diameter indentation on there, and that fits around that C-clip. So we'll lubricate this one, and I'll put a little bit in here. There we go. Okay, this little tab right here, that's actually not a stop. That's to catch this linkage here, which the Bowden or Bowden, however you say it, cable attaches to, so that when the throttle moves, that catches on this little linkage here and pulls that cable. So it needs to go on that side of the linkage. And we have our final C-clip to install. And I don't want to jinx myself, so I'm just going to shut up and put it on there. Oh my God, did not drop a single C-clip out of all this. It sucks so bad when you drop one, because they tend to just disappear forever. Anyway, so that's all back together. Let's lubricate. First we'll put the Bowden cable back through there. Let me go ahead and lubricate the little pivot balls here. Pliers here that help to put these on. There we go. Beautiful. All right, then we got to get these linkages right there. And we'll snap that guy right on there. And then this guy, this is sorry, it's on the back side. You guys can't see that. Just lubricating that one up real good. And that one's going to snap together there. And then the last one is the one down here that connects to the injection pump. Got that cleaned off real good. Just put a little transmission fluid in there and on the ball. And we'll get my pliers, our channel locks, adjust them just right so you can fit it around there and snap them together. You know what, guys, I don't like the way that one feels. I think there might be a little dirt in there. I'm going to pop that one back off. Got some compressed air to make sure I get any of that dirt or debris that was in there. But I think it is. I think it was just some old grease. Oh yeah. Much better. Now pivots freely. And we have one more that's going to go across here to the cruise control. Squirt some transmission fluid in there, and that end, and then that end. And then let me get these positioned. We're going to flip it over real quick. There we go. And then get the channel locks. Beautiful. So that linkage is now perfectly lubricated and restored. That is great. Beautiful. I also want to lubricate this one back here. I don't know if you can see it. Right there by the firewall. Okay, I think you can barely see it popping its head up back there near the firewall. That's another little ball joint. So I want to pop that guy off. Now we are done. Let me take the camera off the tripod and we'll see what we have here. Before I reassemble the AC switch, I'm gonna hit it with some deox. This stuff works wonders for electronics. All right, guys, I am all done, and look at how beautiful that is. See if I can turn up the brightness a little bit. Everything is lubricated, cleaned. You see the transmission fluid where I lubricated all those little pieces. Preserved the original cadmium plating even after cleaning it. And cleaned up the injector lines here too. That is absolutely beautiful. So anyway, that is how you do a valve adjustment and clean up and restore the top end of the engine. Alright, so those videos took me several hours to make, so I'm going to go in and actually upload them now for you guys. Finished up the valve adjustment and cleaned up the top end of the engine. Anyway, please subscribe. I hope you guys liked it, and shoot me an email or message me. I answer any of your questions, and I hope you enjoyed the videos. See ya.